Hey, it's Sonia, and welcome to the SMARTA Podcast. If you've ever felt nervous before a big presentation, struggled to be heard in a meeting, or simply want to speak with more presence, this episode is for you. Welcome back to the SMARTA Podcast. Today's guest brings a truly unique blend of artistry, science, and leadership to the world of communication. I'm honored to introduce the first ever voice coach and singer on the SMARTA Podcast, Jimmy Cannon. He's a former world-touring musician turned voice coach who helps professionals speak with clarity and confidence when it matters most. With a background as a professional singer and a saxophonist, Jimmy has performed alongside icons like Tom Jones and Roger Taylor from Queen on private jets and global stages. But when the pandemic hit, everything changed. Jimmy lost his work, lost his father, and found himself in silence, a moment that pushed him to go deeper. That silence led him to pursue a master's in voice pedagogy, train in acceptance and commitment therapy, ACT, and study the real reason so many leaders choke under pressure. It's not about skill, it's about psychology, physiology, and emotion. Today, he's on a mission to help people from senior executives and rising leaders to unlock their voice, navigate performance anxiety, and speak with impact. Jimmy Cannon, welcome on the SMARTA Podcast.
Sonia, hi. What a pleasure to be here. Fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Just as I told you in the green room, you're my first voice coach here on the podcast. I'm super excited to see where you're going to take me. If you're going to, set up a suspense and intimidate me for a moment or put me on a pedestal, ask me a question right here. I'm curious to see how you're going to develop on the questions. Where I want to take you first is if you can talk directly with the person listening, from all your expertise, from global stages to rock bottom to now teaching leaders through your voice and presence, what would your top 3 key takeaways be?
Wow. Okay. So that's a great question. So, and I wish I had prepared it. No, okay, it's good. So 3 key takeaways would be, number 1 would be, and I've changed the word from authenticity to sincerity.
Sincerity.
Yeah, so it feels to me that sincerity is a more sort of less divisive, more accurate term for being yourself.
Yeah.
And we are so caught up in being self-conscious about how we sound, how we look, how we come across. And actually what we do is we therefore forget the message. And so that would be my number 1 thing. Would be, let's not worry too much about making mistakes. We are constantly, the challenge that my clients have predominantly is coming out of their head and coming out of the expectation of perfectionism that they might be experiencing, and actually to be, you know what, my voice is fine. And I'll let you into, this is number 1, by the way, so we could be here for a while. So, to let you into a little bit of a secret, which is that most of the people that come to me, there's nothing wrong with their voice. So they come to me initially thinking that they have, something going on. They've got a tightness in the throat. I'm not suggesting that they're not feeling it, but it's generally psychosomatic. And it's generally caused by some form of anxiety or something that's happened during their life. The fight-flight response, which is obviously the sympathetic nervous system kicking in. So that is, and we're all nervous when we're speaking to people. I'm slightly nervous speaking to you, right? Yeah. You've made me feel very comfortable, which I appreciate.
Exactly. I know.
Which is great. So, and I appreciate that. So, it's easy to talk to you, so it's not a problem. But there are situations where people have to, in meetings, high-stakes situations, they have to be at their best. And so their voice is possibly letting them down. But generally speaking, it's not their voice, it's their mind. So that's generally speaking. So there's very few occasions where there is actually a clinical situation which we need to deal with. Well, in fact, I can't deal with that because I'm not a clinician. So I'm subclinical in my training, and I would then refer to ENT or a pathologist or someone to make sure that there's nothing going on. But generally speaking, number 1 is, let's just get used to our voice. Let's find our voice. And that's a bit of a cliche, but let's find our voice. Let's be, content with who we are through our voice. And then let's experiment with how we can be more genuine with who we are and through our voice. And that would be number one. Number two would be
Let's see.
not to think about ourselves. So when we're presenting, particularly, not be thinking about what you want to achieve, what the results that
Yeah.
you want for the presentation. That might be, I want to sound fantastic. I want everybody to love me. I want everybody to be inspired by what I have to say. I've gone through a whole life of wanting to be loved as a musician and as a performer. And it's taken me a long time to realize it's not about you. It's about, as in me, it's about the audience and what they want. So when you're pitching, presenting, think about your audience. Think about what change or feeling you want them to experience when you're speaking to them. So that's number two, I would say. Number three is to realize that we can reset or reverse our sympathetic or asympathetic nervous system through the power of the voice, which will then help to manage or mitigate anxiety. Is number three. How's that? Is that okay?
That's brilliant. I have so many questions now I want to ask you. Just by starting with, you changed the word from authenticity to sincerity. I wanted to build up on that because in your YouTube videos, often very, pitch yourself and claim to help people hone their voice and become more confident through presence and authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
And now, you caused a little flick inside my head that you switched that word to sincerity. And you've got me thinking so much about how you're completely true, that we're super hyper connected in the online world today. And authenticity sort of started to lose its impact. And then you hit me with sincerity. And I love it.
I think I actually picked it up. I had a conversation with somebody on LinkedIn and they said, I prefer to use the term sincerity. I think we're using far too often the word authenticity, and it's actually from another perspective rather than our own voice. And I think that sincerity, which is just purely us, purely you and I, how we feel in the moment about what we're doing and what we're feeling and how, etc. I think that's the sincere person that people buy. I think, ultimately we're selling something. We're selling a product, or we're selling a service, or if we're creating content, that's what that. And so therefore people are wanting to see you as completely you. And that's I think that's the key with sincerity.
And also you're scaling it down from a wider audience to you and yourself in front of the mirror. And I want to take you now into the world of challenges, because you set me up on this sort of path where I want to take you next, especially since you coached everyone from musicians to senior executives. I want to talk to you about the most common mistakes that you see occurring, especially when it comes to using their voice under pressure. It happens all the time in presentations, in meetings. What do you see are the most common challenges that always pop up?
The biggest ones are speaking too quickly. So when we're nervous, we tend to shut down. We tend to, the vocal tract contracts. We speak on very quickly, short breaths. So high chest breaths, short breaths. We rush our speech. We mumble. So it's really about containing that, and that's the biggest thing. Is I see that people are rushing their speech. That's number one. Number two would be I've got three things in my head now that you've asked for three things. So that's fine. So okay. So two would be reading a script. So I really encourage all my clients to come off a script as much as you can. I'm working with somebody, just off the top of my head, I'm working with somebody now. He has a health product, and he's pitching for investment at the moment, and he's releasing a new product, and so we're practicing his pitch. He's got word for word what he wants to do, but when he delivers it, of course, it just sounds really robotic. It sounds really unnatural, monotone. Yes, I'm really interested in, and it's really boring to listen to. So what we've been working on is, how can we change it up a little bit? How can we come off the script? How can we start with maybe a question? How can we, it's like what you're doing. You're coming up with fantastic questions, which are taking me on a journey, and they're linked and they're segued, and you've planned it, you've thought about it, which is fantastic. It's much more interesting. And I've done quite a few podcasts now, and Some are just, they're just, oh, so hello, Jimmy. Thank you for coming. Yes. So voice coach, tell me about that.
Yeah.
So
Tell me about yourself.
tell me about yourself. So people they want to know the genuine, as you said, sincere you, as we're talking about.
Mhm.
You've got to come off script. But here's the interesting thing. Number 3 is I'm going off piece slightly here, but it's sort of like, so I've been a musician most of my life, a jazz musician, and I've done a lot of practicing. So when people come up to me, maybe on a gig or something, and they say, "Hey, I'm sort of blowing my own trumpet here, excuse the pun," but if they say, "Hey, how do you do that? How do you learn to sing like that?" I'm a singer and a saxophonist. How do
Mhm.
you learn to sing like that? How do you play the saxophone like that? And actually, when I speak to musicians about that, the answer is, well, it's kind of 10,000 hours of practice is what, to get to that point where, right, it's effortless. So it's called effortless mastery. There's a book called Effortless Mastery by Kenny Werner, by the way, which is a fantastic book. It's sort of aimed at jazz musicians, but it's a really cross the board industry book. And the idea is that you have to come to a point where you're in the flow state, right? When we're performing, we don't want to be thinking about what scale I'm going to use over that chord, how I'm going to interpret that lyric, how I'm going to sing that bit. Oh, there's a really high note. I need to prepare myself to sing that high note.
Yeah,
You need
yeah.
to practice it hours and hours and hours in different ways, in the kitchen, going for a walk, or when you're asleep, maybe not when you're asleep, while you're frying an egg. Can you do the same
Yeah.
pitch, right?
Yeah.
So come at it different ways, paraphrase it, change it up as much as you can, practice it in front of the dog, practice it as you're walking, actually verbalize the speech. So a lot of people, they write the pitch, or they write what they're going to say down. And this applies to, whether you're doing a podcast, or whether
Mhm.
whether it's a monologue, or whether you're doing a video recording, or whether you're doing a pitch or a presentation, or in meetings. Practice and plan what you're going to say. When the moment comes, you're not thinking about how you're going to say it. You're just thinking about the emotion that you want to create. And that's the only thing that should be thinking about. You cannot be thinking about word for word what you're going to say. Now, I understand that if there's lots of data, then that's quite, you have to be able to remember it, and you have to know exactly what you're saying. But then you can use resources and tools to deliver that more effectively. So that's what I would say would be the key things that I notice.
Can I expand on the way you said that a lot of people are rushing or sound like they're reading a script? Because at the beginning, you told me that a lot of clients, when they come up to you, nothing is wrong with their voice. It's mental, and it could be anxiety. I want to expand, especially into the world of technical vocabulary here, and correct me if necessary. If you can explain what globus pharyngeus is and why so many high performers experience it right before going on stage when there's a lot of stress and visibility.
Sure. So actually, I'm laughing because it was the first assignment I did for my master's, and it was one of my clients came to me and was talking about a swallowing effect
Really?
in their throat. So it's quite common. So we experience, so let me tell you, before I forget, globus pharyngeus is it goes back to the Roman period, where they thought it could be all sorts of things. It could be a pregnancy, or a sign of pregnancy, or a sign of madness. And so that's where it stems from. It comes from that. The feeling is that you need to swallow. So it's very common, if you're nervous, that your vocal tract is going to narrow, and that when you're speaking, it can get dry. So but it's sort of a sense of, it's quite rare. So I don't worry about it too much. I don't want your
Yeah.
audience to worry about it too much.
Okay, we can calm down.
Yeah, you relax, good, calm down. So it's fine. Generally, it's a feeling of a swallow that you need to swallow, but there's a lot of somatic responses that people have when they're anxious. So it's a elevated heart rate, it's a sweaty palms, a feeling of tension here, or tightness in the throat, just a general tightness, and a general kind of a block or a stuckness in the breath. So we tend to physically tense up, and it's our body which is creating a physiological response to a cognitive fusion of the anxiety. Now that stems from, we can go into that, but that stems from various things, and it's either psychological, behavioral, or physiological. So if just to go into that a little bit, if we could,
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
is that all right? So we have if we have some sort of social anxiety, and there's the big umbrella of social anxiety, underneath social anxiety is performance anxiety, public speaking anxiety, etc. And you could argue that that could also be under the even wider umbrella of neurodivergence. So that could be there as well. And so, for instance, I work with a lot of people that are academics, they're data driven, they're in IT, software engineers, that type of person. So they're very, very used to being either on their own and doing work, very deep academic theoretical work on their own. And all of a sudden they've got to present their ideas to the team, or they've been promoted and now they're in senior leadership. So they've got a wider audience. They've got to do these pitches and presentations to stakeholders, etc. And this could be, there's a lot of creatives, graphic designers, ad people, IT, that type of person. They're using a different part of their brain, and thank God they exist, because without them, I imagine you, same as me, you and I, as more possibly more left brain than the right. I think I can't remember which side it is now. Wouldn't be able to do what we do without them. So those are the main sort of the majority of people that I work with. They will have, if they do suffer from anxiety, it will be a combination of all either behavioral, psychological, or physiological. So the physiological, as we said, is a physical response to the anxiety. So it would be heart rate, it would be quick speech, it would be shortness of breath, etc., etc. The behavioral response to anxiety is, for instance, or example, maybe an avoidance. So you might physically or you might avoid a situation. When someone says, Sonia, would you like to come and present this conference? I'd like you to be the key speaker for the conference, right? Right. And you would probably go, yeah, fantastic, I'll be there, right? But if you were, right, let's do this. If you were anxious, then you might say, yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm not really sure, maybe next year.
Not really my thing.
Not really my thing. Why don't you ask someone else, blah, blah, blah. So that's an avoidance trait or block. And that's the behavioral response. Another behavioral response might be that, you're physically not looking confident. The way you hold yourself, your body alignment, the way your facial expression, non-verbal communication, for instance, might be very sort of, down, deep and kind of, this, and thank you for coming.
Trying to make yourself very physically small,
etc. So psychologically, the other one is psychological is, by the way, if you have all of these three things, so there is there is a behavioral response, there is a physiological response, and there's also a psychological response. It's more than likely that you have some form of social anxiety. Now, there are levels of social anxiety, and it can be specifically performance anxiety. So that's obviously based on, whether you are performing, and that could be if you're an actor or a musician or an athlete, or if also public speaking anxiety, which obviously by definition, if you are speaking in public, or you have to. So speaking in public could be that when you order a latte. So for instance, I'm rather anxious when I'm speaking to a stranger. Right? I suddenly get really excited and really passionate about, So I really have to calm my nervous system down before I do that. So, oh, hi, nice to, hi, nice to meet you. How are you? Yeah, good. I'm good. How are you? Great. It's fantastic. Right. And I don't think I was like that before when we met. You have this calm aura about you, and plus I'm really tired. I'm really busy today. But if I wasn't and I was really relaxed, I'd probably be like this, hi, Sonia. Great. How are you? Oh, wow. So I'm probably on the spectrum. I've never been tested, right? So that's my thing. So I have to do these exercises myself to center myself, to bring myself into present moment exercises, which is what I do with clients. So going back to the psychological, I'm doing it now, you see, going back to the psychological aspect of that sort of diagnosis, if you like. We are, or we can be, particularly if you suffer from anxiety, we are fused with cognitive negative thoughts. We are fused with these thoughts of, what if I fail? What if I mumble? What if I stutter? What if I just lose my track? What if I can't remember all the question that Sonia asked me? What do we do? Do I ask her again? I'm just going to look foolish.
Yeah.
It means I'm not listening.
Yeah.
I'm like, why? I normally listen really well. What's going on? Do I just keep talking until I have to stop, and then hopefully I've answered the questions she's asked me, right? That's what's going
Yeah.
on in my head, right? So
Okay.
these are all, these are just thoughts that are just popping in, and they are saying, they're doing that, right? Like the devil on the shoulder. So what we need to do is we need to diffuse those, because they are just thoughts. They are just thoughts. They are just feelings, and we don't need them in the moment. What we need to do is focus on a conversation that you and I are having now. And that's it.
And plus, our brain is wired to make us think those negative comments, first of all, because of a safety response, because of our past and because of the way we evolved. You talked to me about physiological, behavioral, and psychological responses. You trained in acceptance and commitment therapy, which is ACT. How do these mindset, emotion, and the physiological world intersect when someone goes on stage and is placed with that pressure all of a sudden?
So the normal reaction is a physical reaction, and that's, it's a shortness of breath. It's, again, you cannot control how fast you're speaking. You can't control the thoughts that might be coming in. So what we need to do is, so the link I try to find in my research, and the link I try to help with my clients is this. Firstly, we need to work out where the stuckness is, where the block is. And that might be, just for an example, it might be that I'm worried about failing. I'm worried about failing on stage. I'm worried about people judging me. I'm worried about that I shouldn't really be here. I'm not qualified. That's imposter syndrome, or lack of self-worth, or etc. So all these things it could be that is causing the problem. Because if you don't have any issues, then therefore you are confident with who you are, and you are confident with where you are and who you are in that place, and you are confident with the message that you are delivering. So that's what we need to get rid of, firstly, right? Now, the interesting thing is that there's been a lot of research to say that, well, firstly, if you can, let's just say for a minute that we've sussed that one out, which I can help you with in a minute. But the interesting thing is, once you've sussed all that out, the voice as a physical manifestation of you as a person, and as a being, and as a resonant human being entity, can actually mitigate or reduce the anxiety that you're feeling so I'll give you an example. Let me give you an exercise. Should we do an exercise?
Yeah, let's go for it.
You want to do it? Okay, right. So this is really, really easy, right? We're going to do it. We're going to take a breath in, okay? But we're going to do it silently, and we're going to do it slowly. Now, what I mean by silently is, I don't mean turn off everything in the room that you've got in the background. What I mean is, if we take a breath through the nose, or even through the mouth, firstly, if we take a breath through the mouth, your air is going straight over the vocal folds, right? So if you take a breath through the nose, it's bypassing the oral cavity. So if you take a breath through the mouth, you tend to breathe cold air in, right? Which is the change of pressure, dioxide, oxygen, etc. Change of pressure in the lungs, right? So you're taking this breath in, right? Which is not good for your voice, period. So number two, it's great to do a breath in through the nose. Now, if you take, hopefully you can hear, well, maybe not.
I do.
Okay,
hear you
perfect.
loud and clear.
Loud and clear. That's good. Well, luckily, because I'm a voice coach, so that's good. So if you take a breath in through the nose, you're going to hear, right? Forgive me. Right, you're going to hear the air going through all the nasal passages, and it's going to be that sound. Now, try to do it silently, okay? What happens when you do it silently is you have a much more direct connection to the diaphragm, which contracts and lowers when you take a breath in, all right? And to do that, you need to open your throat, open the larynx to do that. So if you do it silently, this is terrible for audio, but so if you're in the car and you're listening to this in audio, take a very slow breath in through the nose with me, and do it silently. Go. Okay, and then hold it for a few seconds, and we're going to let it out with a hum. We're going to go. Okay, all right. Okay, so The idea is that you take a silent breath through the nose. It releases the larynx a little bit. If you're tight in the throat, that's going to help. It's going to have a direct connection to the diaphragm, which is contracting and lowering, allowing the belly to come out and allow the lungs to expand, or the ribcage to expand, the lungs to allow more oxygen in, right? So the exhale on the hum is, firstly, it's creating resonance. So, and because it's a hum, you're not putting too much vocal load over the vocal folds. And the elongated hum, the longer you can do that for, actually sends a message to the asympathetic nervous system, the vagus nerve, to calm down. It's actually like saying, yeah, this is yeah, right. It's that
Scientifically proven.
Yeah, it's proven, right? There is evidence and research that shows the elongated resonance of the voice as you're speaking. So that actually reduces the anxiety. Okay, so and it sends a signal to the vagus nerves and says, "Hey, there's no need to shut down. We're okay. Everybody's okay. We're okay, right? It's all fine,
Yeah.
right?"
Yeah.
And that's what it does, right? Which is amazing, isn't it? So very simply, how it translates to speech is like this. So if you're somebody that takes very short breaths, you're nervous, I'm going to take like an upper chest breath, so I'm going to speak, and it's for short breaths, short phrases, and I'm going to keep taking a breath if I need to. Thanks very much for letting me know, right? Like that. Then what you need to do is take a breath, preferably through the nose, preferably silently. Not that we've all got the time to do that when we're speaking, right? So don't get me wrong. The caveat here is that you can't keep taking a long 10-second breath every time you need to breathe, right? So it's just purely an exercise. So take a breath through the nose, preferably silently. And then as you're speaking, try to keep the speech going on one breath, but also try to open the vowels as you speak. So we're elongating the vowels. We're opening up the sound. We're stretching the vowels within the words, right? So that elongated stretch of the resonance of the sound actually calms you down. So it's the out breath, it's the length of the out breath, and then the resonance of that breath, which helps you mitigate the anxiety. How about
I'm blown.
Yeah.
You blow my mind away.
Yeah.
It's super interesting to just stop and take a big deep breath in and see how that humming really instantly like enveloped me through a whole relaxation, and I was instantly more present here with you.
Yeah. So great, wonderful. So the humming is also, it goes back thousands of years for chanting, etc. Right. So just that, you could find it in scriptures, in Buddhism, in all sorts of areas of wisdom and religion and etc. Right. So just that hum, just that resonance is. Let me show you something else if I can. I mean, I'm sorry. Did you mind? Is that okay? Right.
Yeah, go for it.
So the hum. Let's give this an example. So if we're humming, if you play around if you keep the hum and just move your tongue around as you're humming, I'll try to get a bit closer to the microphone. So, and what I'm going to do, hopefully you can hear this, is to create what's called harmonics. So harmonics are sort of extra frequencies that are there, but they don't always come out. They don't always come out to play. So you've got to kind of knock on the door a little bit harder and say, come on, come out to play. I've got, come on, let's go, right? We're going to go for a swim. We're going to have a picnic. Come on, here we go, right? So have a listen, see, it's one of those days today. Have a listen, see what you think. So here we go. So I'm going to hum, see if you can hear the different frequencies. Here we go. Right, so. Could you hear that?
Yeah. I can hear the way you sift through them and
Yeah, so these are different pitches, right? So I can go on about the harmonic series forever, but I won't. That would really bore you listeners. So there's a series of, right? So there's a fundamental, there's an octave, there's a fifth, etc., right? So they make up the quality of our voice. So the more you can tap into that sound, all I'm doing is I'm humming, but I'm kind of putting a lot of energy into it, and I'm moving my tongue around to change the shape of the sound, how it fluctuates within my oral cavity or my mouth. So just that can give you a more open, a more sonorous tonality to your voice.
Jimmy, your most popular YouTube video is how to get your voice back. And
That's really, it's really annoying that that's my most popular video, but that's cool. That's cool though. Yeah, it is. Yeah, go on. Yeah.
Bear with me now.
No, fine.
You just talked to me. I want to take you back to a previous reply that you gave me, which is think about the emotion you want to create when you speak. And I'm trying to shift you now into what the challenge is, into the confidence that you can own and how you can command the room. Could you tell me, if you had to go on stage, what would be the first advice that you would think of to instantly calm yourself? Does it relate to you talked to me earlier about how your body language can show, if you were confident with your voice or not? Is it related to that, or is it something completely different, like humming that starts from within?
Sure. Great question. Thank you. So, okay. So there's a few things to do. There's a few tools, techniques, methods. Breathing is really, really, really key. Okay. So, so the one we just done, there's lots. There's box breathing. There's cyclic sighs. I have these on my videos and YouTube videos and not my podcast, my blog posts and stuff as well. Lots of breathing techniques, generally deep breathing, and certain things. Really, what they're all doing, and I'm going to give you something extra in a minute as well. But what they're all doing is keeping you in the present moment, right? And that's really, really key, because if you start worrying about what might happen, you're no longer in the present moment. If you worry about what happened last time you went on stage and you just wanted to get off as quickly as you could, right? Or if you start thinking about if I look at my first videos 5 or 6 years ago that I did on my YouTube channel, like I'm sure, Sonia, if you looked at listen back to your first podcast, then right, it's, oh my God, what,
Completely different.
right? Completely different, right?
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. Well, actually, that's another thing is desensitization is something really key. Now, I would be really surprised if you said to me, like, this is my second podcast, right? I would say, no, there's no way, right? Because right. It's not. So because now, why is that? Because, you've done a lot, right? I know you've done a lot because you're settled, you're grounded, you're calm, and you're in control, right? So fantastic work for that. Really, really
Thank
good.
you so much.
Yeah, really good, really good. So that's great. And you made me feel calm. We're having a really interesting conversation. I feel like I can open up to you and just be myself and just keep, which is really good. So, but there was a time, I would imagine, where it was a very different kettle of fish. Right. So the fact that you've done it loads of times is one thing to help you get over the nerves, which is desensitization to the environment itself. So and also breathing exercises, which quite frankly are bringing yourself back into the breath itself represents as a metaphor, the present moment. So doing mindfulness exercise, which a lot of breathing or deep breathing, brings yourself back into the present moment. One really interesting tool that I have done all of my life as a performer is to get to the venue early. Right. And get used to the environment. So walk around, let's say you're in a conference room, there's tables being laid, there's waiters, waitresses, there's a maitre d', there's an AV section at the back where they've all got polo shirts with the labels on of, AV, electric AV, whatever it might be, right? And there's, and then say hi, right? Go up to them and say, hi, how you doing? I'm going to be speaking later. They go, yeah, whatever, and have a chat. Have a chat with one of the waiters, and say, "Hey, man, how are you? Everything? What time? How long have you been here?" "Well, I've been here 6 hours." "Okay, hey, listen. Do you need some water? Can I help with the? Blah, blah, blah. No, bugger off. So just have a chat, get to know them, get on stage, walk on the stage. This is where I'm. Hey, hi. Sorry to bother you. Is this where I'm going to be standing? Yeah, just there. We're going to put a lectern. You'll have a head mic, probably, or maybe just like a rifle mic. Okay, great. So that's brilliant. Thank you. Nice to meet you. I'm Jimmy, by the way. Hi. Great. I'll leave you to it. Sorry. Right. Just have a conversation, have a bit of a chat. And the other thing, which I pinched from Patsy Rodenberg, and she is just a guru of acting coaching. She's the guru of acting coaches. And so her book, Presence, talks about filling the space that you're in with your breath. Okay. So this is a little bit, but it's really, really effective. So if you blow into, we'll do it together now. I want you to literally blow into the corners of the room. Okay. So each corner, nice deep breath, slow. Imagine the breath getting from your mouth to the corner of the room and filling the space from your mouth to the corners of the room. Right. We'll do that. Go. Now you can do that 8 times, right? We're not going to spend ages doing that now, right? But then as you speak, you're then filling the space that you've just occupied, if you like, right?
Yeah,
So
indeed.
again, when you're on stage, you're filling the space, you're filling the
Mhm.
stage that you're on. It's an acting technique. So there's loads of exercises and techniques like that to give yourself presence when you're on stage, as well as grounding techniques to bring you back to the present moment as well. One little grounding exercise, and I'm gonna stop there because you're probably thinking, stop now. A grounding exercise would be, I don't have a bottle of water, but I'm going to use a glass here. I've got a glass which needs to be washed, but never mind. It's about a week old. So if you imagine I'm not going to use that. If you've got a bottle of water, right, and you suddenly feel nervous, you suddenly forget what you're going to say, or you've got the wrong slide up, you pick up the bottle of water, you take a little bit of time to take off the top of the bottle of water, right? And you take it off, and these days you just take off the top and it stays there, doesn't it, right? So then you savor the feeling of the plastic on your lips, the water going into your mouth, and you focus just on that. You focus just on that feeling of the plastic, the rim on the top, the feeling of that corrugated kind of rim, the feeling of the water. If it's half full, it's going to be, the actual bottle itself, the water, the temperature of the water, how it makes you feel, how it lubricates the throat, etc., etc., etc. And then all of a sudden, you're back to where you need to be. All right. So there's a few sort of grounding exercises like that.
By far my favorite one that is completely new, by the way, is the blowing method in every corner of the room. I can say my first time doing it, it completely made me hone the room and make it feel smaller. And like I was already knowing it and very familiar with it, even though I can imagine in a different venue that I've only seen for the first time, it would get you to accustom to it and not make it seem so intimidating or grand or unfamiliar.
Exactly.
And
Yep.
I want to take you now into the traditions here on the SMARTA podcast. I know you mentioned effortless mastery before the book and now present, but I'm curious, leaning into the world of literature,
Mhm.
what are your top 2 books, let's say completely changed the perspective of your life would be?
Wow. It would have to be nonfiction. My daughter always says to me, Daddy, you never read any fiction. And I need to. I do. I just don't have the time.
My mom is the same,
Are
yeah.
you the same?
Completely nonfiction, and
Yeah.
she's starting to have an effect on me, and I'm having now half nonfiction, half fiction in my library.
It's important, isn't it? I have I
It
have a I,
very,
I
yeah.
have a stack that will do of books by my bed which I need to read, which are my non-fiction books, which I haven't read. I know I need to do that.
Stack here.
It's called The Piano Shop on the Left Bank. All
See,
right.
you were close
So
enough
it's
on the left bank.
It's The Piano Shop on the Left Bank, and it's by the title kind of says everything really. But it's about a little tiny piano shop in Paris, and all the people that come in and they talk, and it talks about all the pianos. And even if you're not a musician or you're not really interested in pianos, it's
Mhm.
fascinating, absolutely fascinating. It's a beautifully written book, and I would absolutely recommend that book to anyone. The other book I would recommend is I know it off. I don't need to go back there. It's called How to Be Heard by Julian Treasure. And he was actually the person that when I saw his TED book, he's all about listening.
Mhm.
So it's very, very interesting. And I'm a terrible listener. And I've got better over the years, but you know, very, very difficult discipline to really master is listening. And I've done coaching courses and all sorts of things to help my coaching. And that was the key thing that I struggled with is, Jimmy, shush and listen. Listen, 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 listen. Because when you listen, the more you listen, the more you stop talking. I'm not talking to you personally, the more information you'll find out about people, because generally people give you just the layer, the first, superficial layer of who they are and what they want. So you need to ask the right questions and then you need to listen. So he doesn't talk about that particularly, but he talks about how to listen in conversation and not so much coaching. So those are the 2 books I would recommend.
Can I ask you really quick now,
Yeah.
because this ties in beautifully with you need to be more present in what other people are telling you rather than what you're telling them. Tradition here on the SMART podcast is the question from the previous guest, which leaves one for the next one. And so in this case, Julia Cancro is, what is the most common mistake in public speaking? And does it vary on audience size or does it stay consistent? Is it the same every time? You're building the suspense here.
I'm sorry. I'm just thinking no, I think it doesn't really. So one thing that would be covering whatever size audience
Yeah.
would be, I'm sort of harping onto, I'm trying to think of something new, but I think it really is feeling the urge to rush through the content. And as soon as you're not present in the moment and delivering the intention of the message, that's when people go wrong. So getting, because most people think I'm just going to get through. I've got 15 minutes. I'm going to get through. I'm going to get through and finish, done, bye. I'm finished. Thank God for that. That's the key thing. Just take your time, enjoy the moment, and really focus on the intention and the emotional impact that you want from your audience. As soon as you take it away from you and what you need, it becomes a lot easier.
Yeah. Can I add really something onto that, which I think is really relatable to what you've been talking to me previous about rushing, reading the script, and it's filling up the silences with filler words and that stutter in your speech. Because the more you pause, I feel the higher the impact of your words and of your speech will have on an audience of no matter the size. And with that, I think it was, today's podcast, an amazing one. And just before we cut it on here, because I want to give you some more wiggle room as to how you ended. We started the podcast, Jimmy, with you talking directly with a person listening. I want to end it in the same way. So if you have any end message or one habit or an advice that you would like to leave the listener with, what would it be?
Generally for just what generally anything at all, anything I would.
Anything at all.
Or
would you like me to rephrase the question? I've got a one that
can you rephrase the question? That'd be great.
Let's rephrase it. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
I want to take you back in time to when you were 17.
Wow.
I'm 17, so...
Are you really? My word. Okay.
I am 17, yeah.
Incredible.
And so the question that I want to ask you is, with all of the experiences that you've learned and lived today, if you were to talk to your 17-year-old self, what would be the one piece of advice that would carry you on to where you are now?
Can I swear on this or not? It's not really, no.
Not really, no?
No, fine. I would say stop effing around.
Yeah.
And really, really practice. Like really get into practicing.
The 10,000 hours of practice.
The 10,000 hours of practicing, right? Because if I had done that, who knows? I don't know. I mean, I had quite a reasonably successful and enjoyable career as a musician, but I could have been better. It could have been more fulfilling, could have been deeper, and it could have been more satisfying if I had really, really practiced and not bothered at all about money. And not bothered about where I was going to sleep, who I would, just focus on the art. That's what I would have said to myself at 17.
So being more present. That's
lovely. Yeah.
Thank you, Jimmy Cannon, for being on the SMARTA Podcast. It was truly a pleasure, and I'll carry on every exercise that you shared with me today in the future, whenever I have possibly a next speaking gig. And I'll tell you how it worked for me, and if it changed anything, and if it did wonders, which I'm sure it will. So I hope you truly the best of luck with anything else that you've got going on in the future. Thank you for sharing your wisdom on the podcast with us.
Sonia, it was absolute pleasure. And good luck to you. I'm just amazed how grounded you are for 17. And that sounds really patronizing, but fantastic. I'm so impressed with you.
Thank you so much, Jimmy. Take care. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the SMARTA Podcast. I am absolutely bewildered and will do every exercise whenever I feel like I need to relax and hone my presence and the stage, because I feel like it's such a fresh new exercise that I've never tried, especially the one with blowing in the corners of the room technique and the humming. Will definitely be something I will carry later on in life. And from everything that Jimmy Cannon shared today in the podcast, if you've learned anything new, or it made you think about a movie or a friend or a song, please can you rate this podcast 5 stars so we can continue bringing amazing guests on from new industries that will bring new stories and new experiences and new exercises that you can try yourself when listening to them in the podcast. And with that being said, if no one tells you this today, I want to be the first to tell you that I truly believe in your ability to create the life of your dreams. I'm Sonia, Marta, and you listen to the SMARTA Podcast. See you next week.